Hello, everyone, and welcome to the seventh episode of the Unlocking Data series, where we uncover everything you need to know about personal data sovereignty in the Web3 ecosystem, including topics of data ownership in the metaverse. In the coming episodes, we shall be discussing interesting topics around how you can trade your data and own your personal data, like truly own your personal data. Well, that sounds really fascinating to me. So please stay tuned to all of our Unlocking Data series. Well, today, let's not delay. Let's invite our guests. We have Mark Paul, the founder and CEO of Ethm, and we have Praveen Paul for the first time on our series. He is the COO and co-founder at Ethm. Welcome, guys.
Thank you, Anita. Welcome, Praveen.
Thanks. Pleasure to be here, guys.
Great. So, Praveen, why don't you start with a detailed introduction or brief introduction about yourself?
Thanks, Anita. So it's my first time here, so it's nice to be on this show. So I come from a traditional background, more than 20 years in software. Started off in engineering, did some engineering software, had a startup there, which actually was doing some engineering services for mining, and I mean physical mining. Whenever I say mining these days, people assume it's crypto mining, but this is actually digging stuff out of the ground. But that started off then with the whole mining software automation and basically eliminating a lot of the repetitive manual processes through software. And then sort of moved on to India 5 years back and took a role as a director in a company that actually does hospitality software. So it's a bit of a change in vertical, but certainly it was a very interesting vertical to get into. Software in hospitality obviously is quite wide-ranging, but quite an interesting one, which really brought me to where I am today here in Dubai, right? So it was a bit of a backwards and forwards setup between India and Dubai over the past 5 years, and now I'm pretty much established here in Dubai and excited to be here and part of the Ethm team.
Great, Praveen. Thank you so much. Mark, would you want to take over the mic?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Anita. And thanks, Praveen. Great to have you on this. Firstly, really excited to have you here because you and I come from a very similar background, right? Like we've been in traditional tech for 20 plus years. We always saw the potential of Web3, and then we've gone full crypto native now. So it's interesting to have these discussions because we do have a very unique perspective of the crypto ecosystem. So very glad to have you on board. Today's discussion is slightly different. So usually we talk about Web3 data and the intersection of data and blockchain. But today we're actually going to dive into the Dubai blockchain ecosystem. And the reason we want to do this is Ethm has quite a strong presence in Dubai. Our lead investor is based in Dubai, and we really see the potential of Dubai. So very excited to have you on the show to kind of shed more light on this to our community. So I thought we'll jump straight in. In your words, what makes Dubai exciting?
Yeah, so I guess a lot of people talk about Dubai, and many visit here, many don't visit here. So there's always some, people are not very sure about what actually happens here, but it is sort of a very central hub, which actually connects, 3 continents together. So you essentially got Asia, you've got Africa, and you've got Europe, essentially connected through Dubai here in the middle, right, in the Middle East, right? And it's a very liberal state, has direct flights to 230 cities in 140 countries. So it's massive, like massive direct connectivity globally, right? Which makes it a very central hub for companies to set up shop, typically branch offices. So you would have your tech companies, for example, with their headquarters in the US, UK, India, Australia, and they always have a regional hub in Dubai. Only because it's a very central location, easily accessible, great lifestyle, essentially it has a very liberal lifestyle. Even being a Middle Eastern country, it's an extremely liberal lifestyle with a good mix of corporate culture as well as, personal lifestyle spaces. And not just Dubai, obviously you've got all of the other Emirates, which form the United Arab Emirates, out of which Dubai is obviously one of the Emirates. So there are, you could pretty much travel to other Emirates and experience different aspects as well. The seaside, the deserts, even mountains. And if someone told you there were mountains, accessible from Dubai, nobody would believe you. But that's just how it is here. It's sort of like the Switzerland of, the Middle East is what it's really pegged to be. So that's why I've set up shop here, and we feel for Ethium, it's obviously the best place to be in terms of a centralized hub for the Middle East and also the other three surrounding continents.
Yeah, so that's quite, so you touched on a few points there. So for somebody like me who lives in Australia, like when we think about Dubai, like we know there's a lot happening there, but it's always like this black box. So it's quite interesting to get the perspective of somebody who's based there, who sees the ecosystem. So that's great. I also like the way you described it. It's like the Switzerland of the Middle East. That's quite an interesting way to look at it. Okay, so we know Dubai, is really growing in this aspect. Let's dive into tech, right? Like, what is happening in the tech ecosystem in Dubai that's getting you excited, that you feel has really good potential?
Yeah, a great question. So really, tech, when it comes down to tech, I'm sure many are aware, but the Dubai government is the first government in the world to essentially go 100% paperless, right? Which is a massive feat, being able to convert all of the government sort of related functions to a completely paperless environment. Massive saving in money, $350 odd million saved in money, 14 million man hours essentially saved in filling out paper stuff. So it was a great initiative. And that just shows, that the government is sort of so behind tech in a big way. And by sort of guiding that and leading that, essentially by providing, that completely tech experience, everyone else adopts tech, to follow what the government is doing, right? So essentially everything is pretty much paperless now. I hardly carry a wallet when I go out. Everything's on my phone, all the cards, the identity. The identity is also now on mobile now. So it's pretty much a completely paperless environment. A lot of companies setting up shop here. I'll talk a bit about the startup scene here as well, because that's also sort of boomed over the past couple of years, particularly with the COVID situation and sort of a lot of people working remotely. And the government has again embraced that, and provided means for that work from anywhere aspect of things. So tech-wise, government leads essentially, which is what you'd want to see in any sort of country, the government taking a leading role in empowering tech. And then everyone else sort of tacks onto that ecosystem by coming up with this mobile-first sort of approach for everything, right? I mean, if you take deliveries, for example, and I could order anything anywhere in Dubai, and if I order it before 11 o'clock, I get it the same day, right? So it's that advanced in terms of tech and how exactly everything happens here, right? So quite exciting.
Yeah, that is very exciting. So I'm curious to know now, in most of the other countries as well, the government does talk a lot about tech promotion, tech culture. I mean, here in Australia as well, we talk a lot about tech, innovating and also kind of growing the tech ecosystem. How is it that Dubai seems to have achieved more of the implementation part of it? So they've done the planning, but they seem to be executing a lot better than a lot of countries. What is your opinion of that?
Well, I think primarily it's due to the fact that Dubai attracts the best talent globally, right? I mean, and it's not just a specific country that the talent comes from. I mean, if you look at Australia, you pretty much got your talent pool primarily from Australia. Same for the US, same for the UK. But if you look at Dubai, and if you go to any company, it could be a tech company or otherwise, you'll see a lot of the C-level, a lot of the high level, a very diverse mix, right? So you've got people from Europe, people from Africa, people from Asia, and it's sort of like the creme, right, of the society as far as innovators and entrepreneurs are concerned, right? So when you bring that sort of workforce together, you can just imagine what happens in terms of the innovation that comes out, right? You've really got that massive open pool, a lot of ideas coming from different perspectives, which was sort of singular when you look at other countries. So that's what really makes it stand out. And I've met people from all over the world. I mean, it's amazing, right? In that regard, because you have connectivity, you meet people, you experience different cultures. You get to have different types of food, and that's what really I think helped take Dubai to where it is in terms of tech, right? And bringing those experiences together and then providing that user experience to anyone coming here, regardless of wherever they come from, they feel at home. Right, so that's what's nice about the whole tech scene, and not just the tech scene in general. How companies operate here and entice, I guess, people to come here.
Okay, that's also very interesting. So when, as an example, when I made the plunge from Web 2 to Web 3, the first change I noticed was I'm constantly working with people around the world. Like, in the blockchain, if people are in blockchain, you're working with people across the world, different continents, and somehow it always works, right? Like we always get along really well. So basically, it looks like what Dubai has done is they have physically implemented this culture, like where people from around the world. Yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, prior to the whole crypto sort of explosion, this was already happening in Dubai, right? So it's nothing new, but it was happening physically. So yeah, interesting.
It's very interesting. Okay, so let's now dive into the tech trends and the scene a bit more. So you've been observing the startup culture in Dubai, the tech startup ecosystem. Can you give us an idea of what are the trends that you're seeing? It doesn't, not necessarily the blockchain stuff or Web3. I'm sure there's trends in regular tech. Walk us through what you're observing and where do you think that space is heading in Dubai?
I mean, in terms of, I guess it all stems from that whole, basically being 100% paperless environment, right? That's pretty much the driver, right, for tech in Dubai, because everything sort of aligns to that vision, right, that they actually have, that Dubai has. I mean, what really is interesting to see, traditional tech's always been around, and obviously we've always had, hubs here, which actually used to service this Middle Eastern region, because obviously the Middle Eastern region is more easily accessible from Dubai. But I think what happened over the past 2 years is really that major shift to Web3, right? Major shift towards crypto, major shift towards blockchain, right? And that sort of started happening in Dubai only sort of in the last couple of years, right? And with the advent of COVID and that sort of really started spurring things up. And that's what's been quite interesting. I mean, last year, the CEO of Binance, for example, pretty much, bought a house in Dubai, right? He has not owned a house anywhere else, but the first one that he got was here, right? So it just shows that basically it is sort of inviting, in terms of, I guess, tech companies, particularly modern tech companies in Web3 and also blockchain, looking to set up shop here, and essentially be a part of this while it's sort of in the early adoption stages, right? So from the very beginning, the government has always been pro blockchain, and there are a lot of visions sort of that they actually set in place, a lot of, I guess, SPVs they put in place to actually implement blockchain, which we'll talk about a little bit more, I'm sure. But that was really the driver in basically getting everyone here and excited to be a part of the tech scene here. So let's talk a bit more about Web3. I think that's really where what's exciting about Dubai at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've established that Dubai seems to be the place to be if you're an entrepreneur, if you want to meet people from different cultures. So let's go into Web3 now. So Ethium as an example, we are crypto native, full Web3, and it's very inviting to enter a place like Dubai, because we're in other countries, we see the potential, but from a practical point of view, to influence enterprise or to set up base, it's not as attractive as a country like Dubai. So tell us your views on Web3 in Dubai, the ecosystem, as well as what is the government in Dubai doing to attract people into Dubai who are working on Web3.
Great. So now we're talking about a very exciting topic, which I'm quite thrilled about, only because I've been here before, this whole thing happened, and now I'm sort of in the midst of seeing it actually happen. So it is sort of a very greenfields area, and obviously when it's a greenfields thing, and if you're an early adopter, obviously it's a great place to be, right? Especially when things are sort of starting to pick up. I mean, the whole crypto scene pretty much started exploding a bit after those events that were held last year. So despite the whole COVID restrictions, lockdowns all over the world, they had some massive crypto events. So we had the Crypto Expo Dubai, the WOW Summit, and then we had the Future Blockchain Summit, which is part of a big tech exhibition in Dubai called GITEX, which attracts people from all over the world. So that's a traditional tech sort of exhibition in which a lot of tech companies participate. It's all about modern tech innovation, robots, AI, ML, the usual buzzwords that you actually see. In addition to last year's GITEX, 21's GITEX had a separate division essentially for blockchain crypto companies, right? Which was a huge thing. And the 21 GITEX had the most number of people in GITEX's history to attend the event physically. And this was, in a time when essentially there was very little events happening all over the world. So it just showed the interest, right, that people have in this space. I mean, the WOW event had a boxing match between two crypto KOLs, right? So that was an interesting thing. I mean, if you look it up, it's something unique, right? Like you would never see happen in other places, right? So, and also events coming up down the track. Obviously, you've got ETH Dubai coming end of March, and then you've got Binance Blockchain Week coming up. So it's pretty much almost on a monthly basis. You always have some crypto blockchain events happening, and pretty good quality ones. So why would these be happening? Obviously, there's a reason, right? And naturally, it's just to draw that attention to Dubai as far as crypto and blockchain are concerned. So again, it stems down to government, government adoption of blockchain. I mean, the government has a vision, essentially, which they came up with about 2 years back, where they said that the government themselves want to have 50% of their transactions on blockchain, right? I mean, no government in the world has said that yet so far, but, they've set up, essentially a SPV to implement this, right? And already there are a couple of projects happening that are actually starting to adopt this whole aspect of things in terms of migration to blockchain.
Very cool, man. So, okay, this is exciting for Ethium as well, right? If you look at what Ethium's doing, we have a general purpose Web3 data stack. Initially, we were looking at enterprise. Now we are focusing more on crypto native, gaming, avatars, metaverse. But what's exciting is, it looks like our technology could be very attractive to somebody in Dubai, enterprise, government, because we provide that enterprise-friendly stack as well. What is your vision like for Ethium in the enterprise in a place like Dubai?
Well, great question, right? Like, I mean, there are many use cases, right? But let's just start again with the government, right? I think if we look at government, and if the government sets a great example, I think it's bound to happen that corporates will follow, right? And anyone who's in a place where the government is very pro blockchain, it's good to see. And it started off with the whole, I think the RTA, the Road Transport Authority here in Dubai, sort of implementing a project where they wanted to track every vehicle from the point of manufacture till the time it ended up in a scrapyard, with transactions on the blockchain, right? So that was the very first project that they actually initiated, which is still underway. I mean, I don't think it's fully implemented yet. As far as I understand, it's still a work in progress. But again, it's something unique, right? I mean, to be able to use blockchain technology to do that. Now, in parallel to that, the government also had started an initiative called UAE Pass, right? Which is essentially a digital identity, which is what is exciting for, I guess, Ethium. Because it's essentially going to be mirroring our NFMe technology, right? Yeah. And we've got this, but this is actually a digital pass, which validates you as an individual, and sort of has your identity built in. You have an app for that, essentially. Now, what I've seen as of late, now banks are sort of using this technology as a medium for doing, account opening, for example, right? So sign in via UAE Pass. The bank sort of pulls all of the information about you from this central identity, and essentially you don't have to submit any more documents because everything is already built into that identity, right? And the interesting thing is the whole UAE Pass was built to basically connect to various blockchains later down the track, right? So that's what's really amazing, right? The ability, they thought about coming up with an identity that can be used in practical blockchain, cross-chain applications, which is great for us because it gives us a mean, essentially to be able to connect this identity to our NFMe, and then we can have both coexist, right? So
definitely. So very exciting. I think that was an awesome discussion. It was very different to our regular discussions, but very vital that we cover this, given that Ethm will have a very strong presence in Dubai. So I'm going to bring back Anita, and I think we can take some closing statements, and then we can wrap up this session.
Thank you so much, guys. This was a really interesting conversation, and I hope to have more such conversations from Praveen, especially, and from the Dubai narrative in the coming episodes, obviously. So, Mark, have any of the closing thoughts?
Praveen, do you want to give some closing thoughts, and then I'll give my final thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I mean, to wrap up, in terms of Dubai, I mean, the ecosystem, one thing I didn't touch on before was the number of free zones that actually are available, which are essentially little, pockets that exist for international business. I mean, the license that the government have brought in, I mean, just this week I heard they have a NFT marketplace license that you can get, essentially, which lets you, basically as a company legally trade NFTs, right? So obviously every week there's a Metaverse license that came up too this week. Right. So there's no other country that's really so proactive, in terms of actually embracing the blockchain technology and bringing it into business, right? I think that's really what's exciting for me, and what makes me so excited that Ethm is going to be a part of this, right? Because we are in the right time at the best possible place, which is going to have mass adoption. And it's wonderful to be here, and I'm glad that I had this session, and hopefully others will also now understand a bit more about what happens here in Dubai.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, absolutely. This was a very important session. You mentioned right place, right time. I think that's very key. Ethm is going full on. We're launching next month, but we have this strong presence in Dubai, the most crypto-friendly country in the world. So it's really relevant. And thanks for being on the show, Praveen. And definitely let's have more conversations about the Dubai ecosystem moving forward.
Great. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Anita.
Thank you all.